The hospital gala was in full swing, 200 guests in black ties scattered across the Grand Ballroom of the Boston Harbor Hotel. I'd been standing near the bar, nursing a glass of champagne I hadn't paid for. The hospital foundation had covered everything tonight, including my ticket. "That's my sister Emily," Vivien announced to the cluster of people she'd just met. Some pharmaceutical executives and their spouses, judging by their name tags. Her voice carried that particular tone of forced cheerfulness she used when she was about to say something cruel. "She's just a nurse here. At the hospital." Everyone smiled politely. The kind of smile people give healthcare workers at charity events. Appreciative but distant. I could have corrected her. Should have, probably. But I'd learned years ago that Vivien didn't make mistakes like this accidentally. She knew exactly what she was doing. "How wonderful," one of the executives said to me. "Nursing is such important work." "It is," I agreed, taking a sip of my champagne. Vivien's hand was on my arm now, her grip just tight enough to be uncomfortable. "Emily works such long hours. Sometimes I worry she's going to burn out, you know? But she just loves taking care of patients." That's when I saw him approaching through the crowd. Dr. Marcus Chin. Chief of Surgery. 6'2", salt and pepper hair, the kind of presence that made hospital administrators nervous and medical students tongue-tied. He'd been my mentor for the past 8 years, ever since I'd started my surgical residency. "Dr. Harrison," he said warmly, extending his hand. "I've been looking for you. We need to discuss the keynote for next month's surgical symposium." The entire dynamic shifted in an instant. Vivien's hand dropped from my arm like I'd suddenly caught fire. The pharmaceutical executives straightened, their polite smiles transforming into genuine interest. The woman who'd spoken about nursing being important work went very still. "Of course, Dr. Chin," I said, shaking his hand. "I have the draft outline in my office. Should we meet Monday morning?" "Perfect," he said. Then he noticed the group around us, their expressions ranging from confused to stunned. "I'm sorry, am I interrupting?" "Not at all," I said. "Dr. Chin, this is my sister Vivien and some colleagues she was just introducing me to." Dr. Chin smiled at the group. "Wonderful to meet you all. I hope you're enjoying the gala. The foundation does incredible work." He turned back to me. "Dr. Harrison, I also wanted to mention, the board approved your promotion this afternoon. Congratulations, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery." I felt warmth bloom in my chest. "Thank you. That means a great deal." "You've earned it," he said. "Your outcomes are exceptional, your research is groundbreaking, and your residents worship you. The position was created for someone exactly like you." He excused himself and moved toward the podium, where the evening's speeches were about to begin. The silence that followed was deafening. "I'm Dr. Emily Harrison. 34 years old. I completed my MD at Harvard Medical School. Did my general surgery residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, then a cardiothoracic fellowship at Cleveland Clinic. I've been an attending cardiothoracic surgeon at Boston Medical Center for the past 3 years. As of this afternoon, I was the newly appointed Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. I make $387,000 a year. I own a brownstone in Beacon Hill that I bought 2 years ago. I have no debt. I paid off my medical school loans early by moonlighting in emergency rooms and doing locum tenens work during my training. And for the past 6 years, I've been sending my parents $2,000 a month to cover their living expenses." Vivien is 31. She's a marketing director at a mid-size advertising firm, making $89,000 a year. She lives in a luxury apartment in Seaport that costs $4,200 a month, $800 of which I've been covering for the past 18 months because she called me crying about temporary cash flow issues. But Vivien has always been the star of the family. One of the pharmaceutical executives found his voice first. "You're a doctor?" "Cardiothoracic surgeon," I said. "I specialize in complex valve repairs and minimally invasive cardiac procedures." The woman's eyes had gone wide. "But your sister said." "My sister said I'm a nurse," I interrupted gently. She was mistaken. Vivien's face had cycled through several colors, white, red, purple, and settled on a sickly gray. "You never told me that you became a doctor," I asked. "Vivien, I've been a doctor for 9 years. I finished medical school when you were still in college." "But you said you worked at the hospital," she protested weakly. I said I was a surgeon at the hospital, I corrected. You heard hospital, and filled in the rest. The pharmaceutical executive who'd initially spoken was looking at me with new eyes. Dr. Harrison, did you say cardiothoracic? I believe we've corresponded about our new anticoagulant trial. The clear clot study, I confirmed. Yes, I'm the principal investigator for the Boston site. We've enrolled 43 patients so far. 43, he repeated, impressed. That's excellent recruitment. Your data has been some of the cleanest we've received. I could feel Vivien's eyes boring into me, but I kept my focus on the executive. I have a good team, I said. And our patient population is ideal for the study parameters. A younger woman in the group, maybe a medical affairs liaison, pulled out her phone. I watched her fingers move across the screen. 30 seconds later, her eyes widened. Dr. Emily Harrison, she read aloud. Harvard Medical School, class of 2016. Cardiothoracic surgery, Boston Medical Center. Published research includes. She scrolled. 42 peer-reviewed articles. Jesus. 2 textbook chapters. Principal investigator on 4 active clinical trials. She looked up at me. You're kind of a big deal. I do my job, I said simply. There's a TED Talk, the woman continued, still scrolling. From last year. The future of minimally invasive cardiac surgery. It has 1.2 million views. Vivien made a sound like a strangled cat. The woman turned her phone screen toward the group. There I was, in a red dress on the TED stage, a wireless mic clipped to my collar, a giant heart graphic behind me. I gave that talk in Seattle, I said. Last March. You never mentioned a TED Talk, Vivien said. Her voice had gone high and thin. I did, I said. At Easter dinner. I said I was flying to Seattle to give a medical lecture. You said, that's nice, and then spent 45 minutes talking about your new car. The memory was crystal clear. I'd just finished back-to-back surgeries and driven 3 hours to my parents' house for Easter. I was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline, but I'd wanted to be there for family dinner. I'd mentioned the TED Talk during the appetizer course. My mother had smiled vaguely. My father had asked if it was like a PowerPoint presentation for hospital staff. Vivien had laughed and suggested I was probably presenting on how to properly sanitize surgical instruments. No one had asked to attend. No one had asked to watch it later. No one had even Googled it. The pharmaceutical executive was looking at me with something close to awe. Dr. Harrison, I'd love to discuss some potential collaboration opportunities. Would you have time next week for a call? Absolutely, I said. Have your office contact mine. My assistant will set something up. You have an assistant? Vivien blurted out. I have a department, I corrected. As chief of cardiothoracic surgery, I oversee 14 attending surgeons, 23 residents and fellows, and approximately 60 support staff. Yes, I have an assistant. I have 3 actually. The woman with the phone had pulled up something else. There's an article here from Boston Magazine. Top doctors under 40. You're number 3 on the list. She showed the screen around. There was my photo, professional headshot in my white coat with my stethoscope. Vivien was shaking her head. This doesn't make sense. You can't be, you're not. Not what? I asked. More successful than me, she whispered. The words hung in the air like smoke. I could have let it go. Should have, probably. But 6 years of being called just a nurse, 6 years of being introduced as the less impressive sister, 6 years of watching Vivien take credit for achievements I'd earned, it all came bubbling up. Vivien, I said quietly. I perform open-heart surgery. I literally hold people's hearts in my hands and repair them. I've saved hundreds of lives. I've trained dozens of surgeons. I've published research that's changed how we treat cardiac disease. How exactly did you think I wasn't successful? She didn't have an answer. My mother had appeared at my elbow. I hadn't seen her approach. Emily, dear, I didn't know Dr. Chen was here. Should we go say hello? You just heard him call me chief of cardiothoracic surgery, I said. Did you miss that part or did you choose to ignore it? Mom's face flushed. I thought he misspoke. I thought. You thought what? I asked. That the chief of surgery would confuse a nurse with a doctor? That he'd mistake me for someone else. You never told us you were promoted, Mom said defensively. I've been telling you about my promotions for 9 years, I said. The exhaustion in my voice surprised even me. You chose not to hear it. Dad had joined us now, champagne in hand, his face concerned. Emily, what's going on? People are staring. People are staring, I said, because Vivien just introduced me as just a nurse, and then the chief of surgery announced my promotion to department head in front of a room full of medical professionals and pharmaceutical executives. Dad's champagne sloshed in his glass. Department head? Of what? Cardiothoracic surgery, I said. The entire department. 14 attending physicians. Annual budget of approximately $47 million. The number seemed to physically stagger him. You manage a $47 million budget? He repeated. Among other things, I said. I also perform surgery, teach residents, conduct research, serve on hospital committees, and apparently fund my sister's lifestyle. Vivien's eyes went wide. Emily, don't. Don't what? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. The rent I've been covering for you. $1,800 a month for the past 18 months. That's $32,400. Dad's champagne glass slipped from his fingers. It didn't shatter. The hotel had thick carpet, but champagne spread across the floor in a golden puddle. The car payment when you couldn't make it last year, I continued, scrolling through transactions. 6 months at $580. That's $3,480. Emily, please, Vivien begged. The credit card I paid off when you maxed it out, I went on. $14,000. The loan you asked for when you said you were between jobs, which you've never paid back, $8,000. I looked up at my parents. Total amount I've given Vivien in the past 2 years, $57,880. Mom made a sound like she'd been punched. And that's separate from the money I send you, I said to my parents. $2,000 a month for the past 6 years. That's $144,000. The small crowd that had gathered around us had grown. I could see phones out, probably recording. I didn't care anymore. We thought that was from Vivien, Dad said weakly. She told us she got a big raise. Vivien makes $89,000 a year, I said. After taxes, that's about $5,400 a month. Her rent is $4,200. How exactly did you think she was sending you $2,000? Neither of them had an answer. Dr. Chin had returned to the podium. His voice boomed through the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. We're about to begin tonight's presentations, honoring our research award winners. He began reading names. Young researchers, their achievements, their breakthroughs. And then, our final award tonight is the Distinguished Achievement in Cardiothoracic Research. This year's recipient has published 42 peer-reviewed articles, secured $8.3 million in grant funding, and pioneered a new approach to minimally invasive valve repair that's now being adopted at centers worldwide. Dr. Emily Harrison, please come to the stage. The room erupted in applause. I stood frozen. I'd known about the award. Dr. Chin had told me weeks ago, but I hadn't told anyone. Hadn't seen the point. Go, Mom whispered, pushing me gently toward the stage. Emily, go. I walked through the crowd, acutely aware of every eye on me. Climbed the steps to the podium. Dr. Chin handed me a crystal award, heavy and cold in my hands. Dr. Harrison, he said into the microphone, would you like to say a few words? I looked out at the crowd. 200 people. Colleagues. Researchers. Donors. My family standing near the back, their faces a mixture of pride and confusion and something that might have been shame. Thank you, I said. This is an incredible honor. I'm grateful to my team, my mentors, and the patients who trust us with their lives. I paused. I'm also grateful to everyone who told me I couldn't do this, who doubted me, who underestimated me. You made me work harder. I saw Vivien flinch. Achievement isn't about proving people wrong, I continued. It's about proving yourself right. Thank you. The applause was thunderous. I walked off the stage and directly toward the exit. I'd had enough for one night. Mom caught up with me in the lobby. Emily, wait. Please. I turned. What do you want me to say, Mom? I'm sorry, she said. We're all sorry. We didn't know. We didn't realize. You didn't want to know, I said. It was easier to believe I was struggling. Easier to let Vivien be the success story. That's not fair, she protested. Isn't it? I asked. Tell me one thing. One accomplishment of mine that you celebrated. One promotion you acknowledged. One paper I published that you read. She opened her mouth. Closed it. No words came out. That's what I thought, I said. I walked out into the cool Boston night, my Crystal Award tucked under my arm, and hailed a cab back to my brownstone in Beacon Hill. My phone buzzed with messages all night. That. Even Vivien. I answered none of them. Instead, I sat in my home office, surrounded by medical journals and research papers and framed diplomas, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Tomorrow I'd perform a complex valve replacement on a 53-year-old schoolteacher. I'd teach my residents about surgical precision and patient care. I'd review grant applications and research protocols. Tonight I just wanted to sit in the home I'd earned, holding the award I'd deserved, knowing I never had to pretend to be less than I was again. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just finally being seen for who you really are.